Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, we'll look at primitive data types in Python. Right? Now, what are data types? As the name suggests, data types, right? Types of data that are being used inside our program for manipulation and storing purposes. Right? As we know, when we write programs, we need to store a lot of data in form of, let's say, somebody's age, a lot of numbers for addition or some kind of other manipulations, some messages, right? Somebody's name and so on and so forth, right? So Python classifies these data into certain types, right? And we will be looking at and focusing on primitive or the fundamental data types that we have in Python. Now, what are these? Integers, float, strings, booleans, and none data type, which is the special data type, right? So let's open our idle IDE pretty quickly and start to learn about the data types. So first we'll start with integers. Now what are integers? Integers are the whole numbers, right? So let's create a variable called age equal to 25. So when we say age equal to 25, 25 is a whole number which gets stored in the variable called age. This is called an integer, right? Now, let me ask a question to you. When we wrote this code, assigning an integer value to a variable called age, did we write anywhere that it's an integer data? No, right? Now, why is that? Because Python does not require us to write what kind of data it is, whether it's an integer or float or string. Python, by the type of the data itself, understands during execution that what kind of data or what type of data it is. The type is checked during the execution of the program, right? So if you fetch the value of age, we get 25, right? Now, Python understands internally that what kind of data it is, but if we want to check what kind of data it is, we can check that, okay? Python provides a function called type, which can be used to check the data type of a particular variable. So type, starting parenthesis, the variable name, and closing the parenthesis. When you press enter, we get an output something like class int. Now, let's ignore class for now. We'll be talking about classes later on. Let's focus on what is here. Int. Int is the representation of integers in Python, right? Small int means it is an integer. So age stores an integer value. This is what it means. All right. Now, next is floats. Now, you know what are floats? Floats are nothing but the decimal point values or fractional values. Let's take an example. Let's say percent equal to, let's say we are assigning a percent of a particular student in the percent variable, let's say 87.5. Now, when we press enter, it gets assigned. Now, when you fetch the value of percent, you get 87.5 and the type is float. Now, you know how to check the type of any value or any variable by using the type function. So when you do type of percent and press enter, it gives you class float. Float is the representation of floating point values or floats, right? All small. Now, what we can do is we can perform multiple arithmetic operations and other kind of mathematical operations with integers and floats or between them as well. For example, we can do 10 plus 10 or 10 plus 20, we get 30. This is an addition operation, right? Or we can do 3.5 plus 4.7. We are doing an addition operation between two floating point values or floats. We are getting 8.2, right? Now, the next thing, can we do this? Can we do 4 plus 3.5? Can we do an addition operation or any kind of operation, arithmetic operation between an integer and a float? right? You can pause the video and think for a bit and answer, right? Let's do it. The output is 7.5, which is mathematically, it should be, and obviously it should support, Python should support addition or any arithmetic operations between two values, which is one is integer and one is float, because maths supports it, right? So any arithmetic operation is supported between an integer and a float. Now this, we will look at it in detail later on, right? When we look at operators in Python. Right now, let's move to the next data type. We'll look at strings now. So what are strings? Strings are group of characters enclosed within quotations, right? So let's create a variable called name, enclosed it with, let's say, mark. Okay. So name is mark. How to check the data type? Type function and name inside it. We get class str. Str is the representation of strings in Python. All right, let's take another example. Full name, let's say mark space wood. Okay. So as you know, we can have any kind of group of characters inside the string, right? In double quotes or triple quotes or single quotes. We are using double quotes here. So full underscore name is mark wood, right? You can check the data type of this as well. So is str, which is a string data type, right? So we'll look at strings in detail in the next video. As of now, we'll be only looking at what the string normal values are, basic values, and how it is represented. All right. The next data type that we'll be looking at is Boolean. Now, we have seen in literals again, what are Booleans? Boolean have two values, true and false, right? True and false, right? True represent a positive scenario wherein the answer is kind of a yes or a positive answer, and false is used in scenarios where the answer is no or a negative scenario, right? So let's try to store it in a variable, let's say called val1, right, equal to true. T capital, remember T should be capital. It's a keyword in Python and it has to be capital. If you don't write it capital, it will fail. And UE should be small letters or small case, lower cases. So if you see, val1 is a variable storing the value true. Now, what is the data type? How to check it? Again, the type function. Type of val1 will give you, let's see what it gives, bool. So the bool is the representation of a Boolean data type in Python, and we know there are only two values in Boolean, true and a false. So let's check that as well. Val2 equal to false, and val2, if I check the value, it is false. Type of val2 is bool again, right? We'll be looking at when we get these values, bool values, true and false, in Python, majorly when we check certain conditions in Python, right? We get a value. If the condition is correct, we get the value of true. When the condition is not correct, we get the value of false, right? We'll look at in conditional operators how we get these values. And again, in further, when we look at conditional statements, we'll be looking at how to use these values in our program. Okay. Right now, let's just understand what are these values and what are the data types of these values. Okay. Now, the next is the special data type or the none data type, right? So none data type is the data type which is used to store the value which is not known or it is empty or a no value, right, or a null value, right? So n capital O N E small, let's say val3, I store none in it. If I try to fetch the value val3, I will not get any result here, okay? And then, but when we check the data type, the type of val3, it is none type. If you see, it is not none or special type, it is saying none type, n capital T capital. So a single value is there in the none type data type, which is NONE, none. All right. So what we understood in this video, we understood the primitive data types in Python, which are integers, floats, strings, booleans, and none, right? How to check the data type. We did basic calculations or addition operations between integers and floats, right? In the next video, we'll be continuing with strings data types in a bit of detail, and few basic things about strings will be seen. Thank you for